Oh, finally. Okay. Hello and welcome to another edition of Video Games to the Max. I'm your host, Sean Garmer, and here with me today, Mr. Randy Isbelle.
Hey, I'm back.
Yes, you last time you were on, we were doing that Final Fantasy 16 spoiler cast.
hmm
So we'll talk about some other Final Fantasy 7 stuff today. Mark had to have another surgery to kind of keep repairing the issue he's been having since he had the big long surgery. I think this one's not going to be like where he's out for a while. He just had to. Hopefully, this is the last one for him in a while. Just because I know that sucks and everything. But yeah, we're going to talk about some fun stuff with Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. Both of us have been playing that. Sea of Stars and some other things. And unfortunately, we got to talk about some crappy stuff that's been happening with the game industry, layoffs, and we didn't get to talk about those epic layoffs that were happening. That happened like right when we were doing the show last week, and we'll get into Randy having some thoughts on Jim Ryan leaving and a few other things as well. So we're gonna get into all that and more right after this.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get the housekeeping out of the way here. This is your first time listening or 100th time listening. We do appreciate you. And, thank you for whether you watch live like we do right now, which is usually Wednesday or Thursday around the 12:30-ish time, Eastern time, or early time there for Randy at like 9:30 in the morning. And, you can go subscribe on W2 Network YouTube channel, and you'll get not just what we do, but also Radisher Broadcasting folks. They do a great job. They just did the TV party tonight on the One Piece Netflix, and they also did the Saw 10 review as well. So you can go check those out. Talk to Keiki, still doing their thing. They just did the finale and all their awards for this season of anime. So if you keep up with the seasonal stuff of anime every period, they keep up with it too, and they review a lot of shows, and they do great stuff there. So you really should go check them out. And whenever Randy and Jens can do the chapter select, that is on there as well.
It'll be back, I'm sure. Again, just life has hit both of us. He's going through some stuff. Again, last time I was on here, Final Fantasy 16 spoiler cast, I was in a different house. I've moved again because life continues to be weird. I'm still trying. This is actually the first recording of anything that I've done in this new office, so I'm working out the kinks. I've realized this window to my left is way too bright, so I need to fix that. But my poor hat is just getting overshadowed. I don't know how it'll sound on there, but it sounds echoey to me. But we'll see how all that works. But just this is a work in progress. It also was really great. It was like the first time I've loaded StreamYard. I'm like, oh, cool. The whiteboard actually shows up good in my whole display case when I get there. It's like, all right, I've got a good setup here. This is a good test session for me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, the camera looks good. It all looks good. So hopefully it's coming out to you guys as well that are watching, whether you watch later or now. Remember, it is on demand there on the YouTube channel too, so you can check it out there. And of course, if you like to listen with your ears, you can do that on the podcast side. On wherever there are podcasts, we are there. You just got to subscribe to everything individually. Video Games to the Match, Radlich, and Todd the Keiki, and all that stuff. So that being said, let's get along and move on to talking about things here. Let's save the not so good stuff for a little bit later because that's not so fun. You weren't, we haven't had you on in a bit. Last week is basically like breaking news. Jim Ryan leaves PlayStation. He has a big legacy, obviously been there for 30 years. He's basically the guy that was around with the PS5 and the pandemic and all that stuff. What do you think about when you think of Jim Ryan? Like, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think his legacy is?
I mean, obviously, his legacy is really pushing Sony forward. Obviously, you can't think of anything PlayStation without Jim Ryan because he's basically been around for just about all of it, if not all of it. Trying to remember a time frame of when the original PlayStation came out. Was it 95, I think?
Yeah, around there.
So he's been there for all of this time. So obviously, when you have a big departure like this, it's going to impact the gaming industry. We will see if it becomes a positive or a negative later, because honestly, for somebody that's been there that long to get a different viewpoint and a different perspective may be really good for Sony. There are things that they have done as a company that I really, really like, and there's some stuff that I disagree with. Maybe we can get back into the handheld market, please, instead of this weird remote play stuff that they continue to think that people are going to use. We don't care about remote play as much as you think. It's a nice convenience, but it should not be everything that you do. Um, PlayStation Plus continues to be a mixed bag. We'll talk about more of that, I'm sure, on this show with some of the other news that came out. But yeah, I mean, obviously Jim Ryan made a fantastic impact in the gaming industry, and congratulations for him to retire. And I'm both optimistic and semi worried where things will go with somebody else in charge. And obviously he's not the head person in charge. Everyone in Japan is doing their stuff too. But anytime there's a big change at the top of a company, you just are curious where things are going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be important to see where they go from here because they already have things in motion. Obviously, he's not leaving until March 2024, but you have things in motion like all the moving to live service stuff that we've already seen big news from Sega canceling their big live service game and how much went into that. Obviously, there was things that are other outside things that don't have to necessarily mean that Sony's doing the same thing. But if it's starting to feel like that bubble might be bursting and Sony is just starting to head in that direction, it's going to be interesting. Do they make a sudden pivot and go somewhere else? Because now you have for right now, you're going to have Hiroki Totoki as the person kind of shadowing him, and then he will be the kind of interim guy until they find somebody else. Will he make any decisions? Will they decide to move away from that? That's going to be interesting. I'd love for them to go in the direction of caring about their old games again. Like, care a little bit more about your backwards compatibility and act like you used to have consoles that cared about that, use PS Plus more in that way. Because,
Please.
yeah, because it sucks. Like, they're doing a good job of, Twisted Metal TV show came out. Oh, here's the Twisted Metal games. Oh, here's that Star Ocean game just got it got a demo and it's gonna come out soon. The second story R. Here's all the other ones, right? But like, I don't think we need to keep waiting until there's a seminal moment for that franchise to release the games. Like, just give us more options.
It is very weird that they're doing it that route instead of what they did with. When it first launched, I was really excited to see what they were going to do with the old games.
Right.
And I knew it was going to be a trickle, and we weren't going to get just unloaded with classic games. I had a feeling it was going to be more like the Nintendo Wii U and stuff, instead of where the Wii was like, here's a bunch of stuff at the beginning, and then it became a little trickle. It's like, I just knew we just were not going to get a lot. Right. But like, we got all the siphon filters, but it was like 2 or 3 months in between each one. So if you were a fan of that franchise or you wanted to get into it, they gave you ample time to play each one. And now it's like, here's all of the Twisted Metal games that you want to get into, which, by the way, I went back and played. How did we play the first one? Like, I was really good as a younger person playing the original Twisted Metal. I could beat all of the levels with Mr. Grimm. I was really good at that game. I could not control the thing because it was like push up and down on the joystick to go forward and back, and my brain couldn't handle it. But that one, while it's not as bad, like, I remember playing the original Star Ocean, but Star Oceans are long ass games.
Yeah.
So who's going to have the time to go, here's 5 of them? It's like, well, cool.
Right.
It's going to take me 3 years to complete that series if I want to. That one I thought you could trickle through a little bit. We need to do that more. Trickle through the Resident Evils, trickle through the Silent Hills. Let's trickle through all these fantastic franchises that you have, instead of, oh, something finally happened with this franchise, so here's all of it.
Yeah. It is a weird kind of thing with that. It's like we went in one direction and the other one, and I would kind of love for them to eventually get rid of the third tier and just put all of that into the second tier, and you just get whatever because now it's like, it used to, at first they said that PS4 games were going to be extra, right? Now it's like, oh, there's PS4 games that are also on the premium. So it's like, this is confusing. Please stop confusing me. It's like people that go on that service, let's say they go and try to find something that they were told, right? PS4, PS5 games are part of the PS Plus Extra. The stuff that's older than that, it's supposed to be considered retro. That's on you're paying the $2 extra for that and for the streaming and whatever else. And so, you're kind of blending the lines and you're making that a bit more chaotic for people. Whereas like that thing that Microsoft introduced to get everybody on Game Pass to get rid of the Xbox Live Gold, that makes sense. Like, okay, I mean, the $1 difference doesn't really make sense, but the whole, okay, there's a certain number of games you're going to get. Here's the list. We're going to change those around or whatever, but it's not going to, but you won't be able to play everything. So you already know straight off, this is what I get. And then ultimately, obviously you get everything. So it's, make it more transparent for people.
I'm with you as far as a two-tier system. I still have the third tier, mostly because I keep forgetting to bump back down, because I like playing the classic games. And I had set out, I was like, I'm going to platinum all these old ones, and then half of them don't even have trophies still. And some of the other ones are just, again, like the original Twisted Metal. I don't think my brain's going to remember how to play this game.
It made more sense back then when we haven't been using triggers to press down on the gas.
And analog sticks weren't a thing. And
yeah,
way back were simpler times. But like they have the schedule wise, it's perfect for a two-tier system. You get your PlayStation Plus Essential games on the first Tuesday of every month, where you get your 3 games, and hopefully there's at least one that interests you. And then 2 weeks later, they dump you with a bunch of stuff on the extra and premium tiers, which again should just be 1. And there's 7 or 8.
And I'm going to give them a lot of credit. I'm sorry, Randy, to interrupt you. They have been putting out a lot. Yeah. Like if you weren't part of the PS ecosystem or you don't buy a lot of games, there is a lot there for you to play.
I get more game time from that second tier than I do the first tier. You and I know I don't know if you finished it yet, but I'm only a few hours in because again, double moving and all that stuff. But like being able to play Sea of Stars, which I know is on Game Pass too, was fantastic. So you're getting like release date games on that system, but on top of that, you're getting I want to say there's like 10 games almost every single month.
Yeah.
And it's not just there's going to be 2 or 3 that are whatever. And I'm surprised how many Paw Patrol games there are. Though, thank you again to the second tier of PlayStation. My daughter now, who's 6 years old, has 2 platinums off games I haven't even helped her with because of the little kid games that they've thrown out there. So it's awesome. Again, not every game has to be for you. It's for a different target, and they spread it out extremely well. Obviously, last month was very RPG focused because 5 or 6 of them were Star Ocean games. And I sent it to Jens. Speaking of him, I asked him, I go, are you working for Sony now? And did they ask you to give out 5 or 6 games? Because like half of that monthly list were games that he has been begging me to play for Chapter Select. So
that's awesome.
And some that we have, like the Odin Sphere game and stuff. So, and he looked at it all, what a fantastic month. So the second tier is beyond worth it. The third really is not. I still don't use the demos or the game trials.
Yeah, the game trials are just
I mean I like that they are there. I just go, well, I'll wait. Like they'll end up on this service eventually anyways. But yeah, the second tier is fantastic. I'm with you though. I wish they would just combine them, because again, it's just perfect. It's the beginning of the month is the first tier, the middle of the month is the second tier. So every 2 weeks you're getting new games from Sony.
Yeah, it feels like honestly the game trials are really only useful when there's like a big sale on a game and you're kind of like,
see what you
I don't know, and you can play it yourself instead of watching somebody's like stream or something. Like that's what those are good for. But like me playing that and deciding if I'm going to drop $70 on a game, I don't know about that. So another thing that has been a big Jim Ryan focus, it feels like, is the push towards movies and entertainment, and that has worked out fairly well. Obviously they have Spider-Man. That's another thing with Marvel, but whatever. The Twisted Metal show was one of the most well-received shows. I don't know if you've watched any
not yet. Again, I was trying to wait for us to get to it on Chapter Select, and then life hit these last couple of months and had to put us back on hiatus again.
It's actually pretty good, so I would recommend going to watch it. And then they have other things in the pipeline as well, and obviously the Last of Us show too. You guys covered that on Chapter Select. Good. So like they push towards that, and now they've kind of brought this full circle, feels like, because there was a leak a long time ago, or it feels like at least a year ago, about they were going to release some kind of app or streaming thing where you're going to be able to do what you do with all these other streaming apps, which is Sony movies are going to be on this thing, and it was somehow going to tie into PlayStation Plus. And so now it has sort of been brought in. I don't know exactly if it's there right now. I haven't checked my PlayStation.
I haven't looked.
But it's called Sony Movies Core or something like that. And basically you're going to be able to rent or buy a big selection, a Sony Pictures Core, I'm sorry. And it's supposed to have like somewhere around 2,000, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 movies that you can buy or rent that are Sony movies. So like the Spider-Mans, Uncharted, No Hard Feelings that just came out. And then there's also going to be around 100 movies that you can stream through if you have PS Plus, which I guess the premium tier. So I guess they're adding a little bit more of incentive for you to have PS Plus Premium, which right now there's not a huge selection. It's like the Final Fantasy 15 movie, which I guess if you didn't get the special edition and you don't have availability to watch that movie, I guess there it is. That Resident Evil Damnation movie as well, and some other stuff. What do you think about this? Would you end up using it, or you think it's decent?
I expected it to have a little extra, and it's smart to put it on the second and third tiers for PlayStation Plus. It would be smarter for them to add even more to the deluxe one, where you can get so many on premium and then even other ones on deluxe, just if they want to keep that 3-tier system, give a reason, more of a reason to do it. But they probably won't. But the thing that
hopefully that Gran Turismo movie, which also is apparently supposed to be good, will wind up on there.
Excited to watch that. But the thing that I still don't understand, and I know Amazon still does this, who out there buys movies digitally anymore?
I want to know how many people, especially after they've had a few that they just pulled, and you no longer, even if you bought it, you no longer own it. Like
I will occasionally, and most of the time it is for movies that Jens and I have watched. It just, they're so old that you can't find on a streaming service. I will rent something on Amazon. I've never bought anything digitally movie-wise, as I have a ton of video games I've bought digitally, because that's just where that world goes. But like this is another streaming service. There's 700 billion of them, to the point where I want to say there's like 70% of movies ever made are on a streaming service right now. And those that are not will get rotated in at some point, and you just have to kind of find them. So the fact that they're like, hey, you can rent or buy these. No, just make a streaming service. Though, half of these movies that you've listed off, if not all of them, are on other streaming services right now. I do worry that, now pull them from those streaming services and make people pay even more. And that's kind of where this weird rabbit hole has gone. Netflix became so popular and Hulu followed, and then people are like, well, I have Netflix and Hulu, so I'm going to cut my cord. I'm not going to have cable anymore. So all the cable companies went, well, shit, we need our own.
Yeah.
And now we're all paying more for all these streaming services than we paid for cable. It's just how it goes. And here's another one for you.
And now Netflix wants to raise the price again. So yes. Here we are again with this. Yes, I agree with you. Well, I think eventually it will turn into some kind of streaming app. It's like that Redbox app. Like Redbox will still exist. You can go and rent the DVDs from the Redbox if you want. You can apparently also do that on the Redbox app. And then they also have some that you can just stream without paying. And I think this will be fine. Like eventually they're going to have to be like Amazon, where you're really going to have to be getting these Sony movies and really making it worthwhile. The problem is that I don't know how much they're really going to get from this. I think this is just kind of like an extra thing, and they're not really expecting much out of it because they already have all these deals with all the Spider-Man movies are going to come to Netflix eventually, and then they go to Disney Plus after a certain time. So they're getting money on top of money on top of money for all this stuff. So I think this is cool. Hopefully they do add things that are, like that Gran Turismo movie. It's a Sony product. It's a PlayStation game that is made on a movie. Like that should be available for people eventually. So you can enjoy that, and obviously you can go and if I'm probably going to go be able to watch it on some other streaming service too, but that's where it seems like all that stuff's going. Like I was trying to watch the Fast and Furious movies because I watched 10 and I never watched all the other ones. And I had to go. You
didn't know why they were a family. You just knew they.
Yeah, exactly. I just watched. Somebody was like, "Oh, you want to go see this?" And I'm like, "Well, whatever. Right? It has all these people in it. I'll go watch it." I've seen parts of it before. I knew The Rock was in them and all that stuff. But like having to go through 4 different streaming services to be able to watch all of them, that is where we are at now. They stopped caring about being exclusive and like, oh, we got to have everything to. Let's see how much money we can get from porting out every movie to another service. And it's like, no wonder people are on strike for this right now. No wonder they're wanting to get incentives because look at all the money these people are getting and these writers are not getting and all these other people are not getting from that. So, but I digress. That's something else. Mm-hmm. Since we're on the Sony beat here and we talked about Last of Us, unfortunately, Naughty Dog is having to let go of some contract workers, which are mostly in QA. They're not getting severance. It's about 25 workers. Obviously, this seems to be a thing that is happening throughout the industry. We're going to talk about some other ones, big and small. I mean, what do you think about this? Like, do you feel like this is kind of, we're starting to go back to, people are going outside and we're not playing games much, or what do you think this is?
I did not put 2 and 2 together there where the games of service worked so well during, the pandemic and us all staying home. And as things continue to shift more towards normalcy, that people go outside and they're not playing as many games and not going in with that. But honestly, this was not super surprising that at least the Factions game just has not really worked out. I'm still surprised it has not released, but it was never going to be this fantastic success that I think a lot of people were excited about. I liked the Factions mode in the first Last of Us. It was a fun multiplayer game, but I never got hooked on it. Had a nice little twist that you could play with as you were playing your online matches. But I mean, it definitely sucks for all these workers to lose their jobs because of it. But like you said, we're going to have multiple stories about this. Like Games of Services had its boom. Everyone then jumped on the bandwagon and oversaturated it. And those companies like Sony, who was it last year, who said we're going to have a bunch of these
Herman Holtz said he wanted to have 12 by 2026.
So the area was already oversaturated, and then Sony's throwing in, hey, we're going to have a dozen more on top of the Sega gave us stuff. Like, just because you're putting your name in the hat does not mean you're going to have the same numbers of Fortnite. Why? Because it's not like the population of the world has tripled. Like, you only have so many gamers that like these kind of games, and guess what? They're already hooked on Fortnite, and they're already hooked on PUBG, and they're already hooked on Apex Legends. Like, they've got their games, and it's going to take a lot for you to pull them over. So now we get the Rumble versus where 37 people play it religiously, and like, you get that boom that first week and a couple people get hooked on it, but it's not enough to keep it alive. That's what all of these games are going to do. Like, you could possibly be the next like Fortnite. I mean, Apex Legends did a great job of finding a good hook into this genre, but it is extremely difficult. And for the years that it takes to make these games, and I think it was the Beyond podcast I was listening to the other day, to give them credit for it. They said it perfectly. It's like these game industry people are hitting a moving target that's 5 years out.
Yep.
So we see it all the time. There's a trend that happens, and then 3 to 5 years later, we see the big boom on it. And then you get those people that see the boom and they're like, oh my God, we have to be part of this boom. So then they spend 3 to 5 years to be part of the boom. But by the time they have their games come out, that boom's over and we're off to something else. We're in that period for games of service right now.
Yeah, and then not only that, I mean, we're talking about Sony and Sega's Hyenas thing going into the extraction shooter business. Let's not forget that there's other stuff, right? There's Fall Guys, there's Rocket League, there's Pokemon Go, there's so many of these continuous games that never Destiny, like Sony themselves own Bungie, so like they're competing against themselves. Like it's
Final Fantasy 14's another one.
Final Fantasy 14. Like it's like there are only so many people, World of Warcraft, like so many people that are just available to play these games, and not a lot of, like you said, people are hooked on that one game. It doesn't mean that because that game is just like that other game, they're going to give it a shot, because they're going to say, okay, it's free. Yeah, I can try it free, but like, what am I going to, what is going to bring me over here and keep me here? And I think that's when Bungie did that assessment of the game, they said, oh, look, there's not a lot here to keep people here. And if you birth this game out and people play it for the first month and then there's nobody playing it, well, nobody in the sense that it's not enough to really keep it going, you wasted development time, you wasted money, you wasted, and then we run into the problem that we're going to talk about what Epic is having, where you wasted money and now somebody's got to suffer for that.
Right.
And this is the problem. Like, you spent a lot of money on this. It went into turmoil to the point where they had to put a small little team working on it so they could do other stuff. And then now you don't even know if this game's going to come out or not. It's on ice. Like, yeesh, that doesn't look good for the rest of the shooters. And I mean, they announced like 3 at that last State of Play,
right?
Not the last one, but the one before that, the showcase.
At least with this one, I mean, the other 3 that they've announced and shown, but what was always worrisome for Naughty Dog is they're single player focused. Right? I mean, again, they had factions, and it was I thought overblown. I liked the side stuff that came with it, but once you played a multiplayer match, it was just you versus them and a bunch of normal not first person, but normal multiplayer shooter stuff. But it was just all the side stuff and the trying to keep your camp alive and whatever that was. My memory is not fantastic about it. I just remember playing it, but still, Naughty Dog, they do the first player stuff. It's just single player experiences and the crazy stories, and now with the TV show, they are going to be very tight knit on what happens with this franchise, and they don't want a game that's kind of half baked to go out there. And obviously, they feel like they have not hit that perfect mold for this, so honestly, I would not be surprised if they just say, we apologize. You know, we kept talking about factions in this multiplayer. It just did not come to fruition. But man, we got this this new single player game coming out eventually, and then Last of Us Part 3 will come out. We're gonna bring the hits again. We just couldn't get the multiplayer going.
Do you think that now that there's somebody else in charge, maybe Sony will go back to making different kinds of games now? Because for a while, Jim Ryan was all about, it's got to be the movie game, the third, the narrative game, Last of Us, God of War, all that. Or you think they just keep on the same track?
Again, it really depends on what kind of voice comes in. I said at the beginning of the show that's the interesting part is, you get a new voice in, and it could go in a good direction, it could go in a bad direction, but it most likely will go in a different direction for the most part, because whoever comes in is going to want to put their footnote on the history of Sony. They're not going to go, well, we're just following Jim Ryan's blueprint. They're going to follow it to a point, because obviously what they have been able to do over these last 30 years has been very successful. But I mean, things are going to change. The landscape of video games change constantly. Right. The landscape of what Sony comes out with has changed. Again, we've had this whole games for service stuff that had a big boom, and now it seems like it's going down. Like, are we starting to trickle out of the cinematic video games? And then what is next? That's what's so crazy about gaming. You can just go back to 10 years ago and go, wow, that was really where gaming was. Look at all the excitement for this Assassin's Creed Mirage game. Why is there so much excitement about it right now? Because it was what we loved from the original Assassin's Creed, and we're like, well, they went in a direction that a lot of people love, but they're like, God, it's just too much of it. I remember Mark talking on this show about, I'm 70 hours in and I haven't completed the game yet, so it kept me away. And now it's, well, Mirage, 20 hours and we completed it, and it's just a nice tight knit.
But then what's so
Assassin's Creed 2.
What's so funny is that then you have the people that are now used to there being all this stuff that you have to do, and they go, oh, this is great nostalgia, but it's like you went too far. You went too far back. I need some of that stuff that's in the new games too, and it's like, oh, poor you can't please everybody.
You can't please everybody unless you're Assassin's Creed and you're coming out with 13 different games.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, if this is not the Assassin's Creed for you, just wait. 5 more are coming very, very, very soon. So, but no, I'm very excited to see where things go. It's been a mix of nostalgia and new things. So you give credit to Nintendo for continuing to try to mold the two. I'm very excited for Mario Wonder, because it feels very old school with the 2D platforming, but they add in so many different things you've never seen before. And that's where I hope Sony goes. It's like, all right, we've had this whole cinematic universe stuff with Spider-Man and Last of Us and God of War and everything that we've done. Now, how do we take that and mold it into something similar but new? And we'll see where things go in the next few years.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting time for Sony on that front. And, a game that would normally have me excited to find out this news, but just understanding that it's just way too gigantic that I'm probably never going to have time to play. Final Fantasy XIV apparently can now be played solo because they've added this. They've added all the current dungeons to this the system that they have where you can add NPCs instead of having to go find people to do the raids with you and stuff like that. Is there ever a point where you go, man, they've made it possible for me to play this game. I don't have to go find a bunch of people. I'm going to go play Final Fantasy XIV now, or it's just going to be one of those games you're not going to play?
I want to so bad. You said that. I had not heard this news until I read it in your notes. I've beat every numbered Final Fantasy ever except for 11 and 14 because I don't do online games. And now you're telling me I can play 14 finally and put that on the list. We have not talked about the games we played about, but we talked about Sea of Stars, and that game came out a month ago, and I'm still 2 hours in, and I love it. I love what I played of that game. I just have not had the time. So it is one of those games where, yes, I would absolutely love to play Final Fantasy 14. and finally beat it, because I keep hearing such fantastic things about it. But when will I have the time, especially with what's coming out over the next 3 months? And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at the beginning of next year. I retire probably in about 40 years at this pace. So maybe then. Maybe I'll do it then.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll be the old folks that are in the old folks home playing the games, right? We're not going to be playing dominoes and all that stuff. So that's I use that as sort of a lead in to talk about our games that we've been playing, because we've kind of been playing the same stuff, and also because we did have recently the people got to go play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing that came up on that. So like, having seen that, and now you play Ever Crisis, obviously both of us have a lot of experience with Final Fantasy VII. Both of us don't play a lot of mobile games either. So like, what do you think of playing Final Fantasy VII this way? I guess.
Again, it's like CS-Stars. I'm not far into it. I think I'm at like the second reactor in Final Fantasy VII. I love how they have put this together. It's like the what were those books that you could buy when we were kids that would be the shorter versions of
like the abridged version of the
But there was a company that did them really well, and they would be like 50 pages. I can't think of what they're called. They were like yellow or something. I remember buying a couple of them, but it's basically that of Final Fantasy VII. You just kind of hit the quick notes and the key spots of things, and it doesn't go as long. And literally, like, these sections of chapters go for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then you have a couple battles in there. And I love the way they do the battle system. I think it works really well with mobile. I was worried about the game being on mobile and having all the energy and stuff, but as far as I've played, as long as you play the main story, I'm not losing any energy on it. I'm going to guess it's only for the side stuff that they've added so far. Have you gotten that far?
Yeah, so, I don't think I'm really giving any spoilers here. The
Cliff notes.
So the game
Cliff notes is what I was thinking.
Yeah, it basically gives cliff notes of the game, right? So all the stuff that you do where you walk around, that's taken away. There's no. There is some, like when you go to the Mako reactors, and later when you play the other parts, like a Crisis Core, when you play Fort Tamblin, and so there are parts where you walk around, but they're the main parts of the game. So I don't think it's really a spoiler. This is in remake as well. The part where you have to do the picking the dress to go to Don Corneo, that's gone. You don't do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm assuming when you get to the parts where there's open world, you're not going to do that either. You're just going to go straight to battles, the main story, all that stuff. So that's what you miss, right? You miss all the side stuff. You miss all of the I guess open worldish things where you can make decisions. That stuff is gone. So that's the thing, is you're basically getting like we talked about, the abridged version of Final Fantasy VII, of Crisis Core, of the First Soldier, and the game does make you play all of the games. You don't just get to go straight through 7. You have to play Crisis Core eventually, and you have to play the First Soldier thing eventually to be able to unlock further parts of 7.
Yeah, so, I'm still at that point where I can't even get to Advent Children or not Advent Children. I lost my mind. But Crisis Core and the new stuff yet, because I haven't gotten far enough into 7. But I like that I truly believe that they are setting this up, and they've come out with this game, and they came out with the Crisis Core remaster because of Rebirth, and there's going to be things that are in these games that are going to get mentioned or become key points in whatever weird twists that they're going to do in Rebirth. And it's just a cool way to do it. And again, it's a mobile game, so I was really hesitant, but so far from what I've played, it's really good. But every time I load this game up, I have a huge update on it. I feel like it's taking up half my phone, but it's really good. And it runs so much better than I was expecting it to.
Yeah, I love the character art as well, the little chibi characters, and like the battle system is fun. It is challenging as well. You can have your players die, and if you do play, because it gives you a power level before you start the thing. When you're playing the story, you're not going to run into that. When you the side stuff, you do run into quickly where your team is not as powerful enough.
Yeah.
And you will get smashed. Like, it's not a joke. It's not a joke of a game. You really do have to pay attention. It's not like Final Fantasy VII. It's more active. It's, I guess, kind of like more like playing Crisis Core in a way. Except the whole game's like that. So I think this is like, I agree with you. I hate that too. Like I've had to continuously delete stuff off my phone because this thing continuously keeps asking me to download something every time I load it up. I do like the fact that it adds things to your. It gives you things for logging in. It does feel like it's generous with that. It doesn't feel like you're being pushed to buy things all the time.
Right.
So to me, it's been an enjoyable experience, and I've already seen some of the cool stuff with First Soldier. Haven't gotten to Sephiroth's story. I think they just added that, so you're gonna get to find out like the history of like Sephiroth before he was even in Crisis Core. So like they're adding an incentive for you to actually want to play this game because there's story parts in here that you're not gonna get. I mean, you can obviously watch them on YouTube, I guess, but it's not the same as playing with it. So. Yeah, I think it's a cool game, and I'm glad that it exists. And having a I don't know if they're going to put Dirge of Service or some of the other things in here. But
place to put it. It's just here's the the cliff notes of this garbage, please.
But yeah, it's like this is a cool thing that I'm glad that we have this, and they added this all together. Just being a mobile game, the fact that it's something going to be on PC. Gives me enthusiasm that hopefully this will be on Switch at some point, or I guess the Switch 2 at this point, so that it can feel like it will actually be able to live on, because I worry with the mobile game, they can just always shut that thing down and then you can't play it again. So that's my only worry with it right now, but hopefully it keeps going so they can keep making stuff and we get all the games on this game and you can go back to it whenever you want to. I think I'm probably just as far as you on Sea of Stars.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, because like I really enjoyed what I played, and then other stuff started coming out, and I started playing Ever Crisis. Obviously, it's much easier to play on my phone than having to sit down and then the new FIFA or whatever the hell that's called now, EA Sports FC. So. Like how have you liked it? Like
it's such a slap of nostalgia for you.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And obviously you get the Chrono Trigger vibe just because I mean they have some music from the composer and stuff, but just like they do such a smart thing with the game that they don't overload it with stuff. And I think I've seen an interview with one of the producers basically saying that they set limitations for themselves, that if this old system could not run it, they won't do it. And you can definitely feel it runs extremely smooth. I'm liking the characters so far. Again, I've just got out of the class area where you're kind of going through the tutorial, and I'm headed off on my little adventure with the little cook guy and having fun. I think
I love him. He's so sweet.
Just met the girl that's going around and she's investigating some big rock thing. Again, it's probably been 2 weeks. I've been so busy, but the combat is really interesting. You can combo things in a really fun way, and they make you really think. The ways that you can kind of knock back a enemy, where they have the little bars where hit them with a blunt object and a sword attack and stuff, and then he won't attack that turn. Kind of makes you actually really think about what ways you want to attack this group of enemies. So especially when you get the bosses, I think what they have done battle wise is really, really good.
Yeah, the battle system is absolutely so fun, and that's what
it kept me drives me nuts. The boomerang thing, for whatever reason, my brain just stops working halfway through. I finally got the trophy for doing it 25 times in a row, but I get so mad at myself when I mess up, but I love it.
Yes. Yeah, it took me a bit for that too. Like, it's just, you have to like constantly just be, and then that timing, man, eventually it gets super fast, and it's like, well, okay, here we go. I love that. I love the fact that they had the Paper Mario elements where you can decide if you press A fast enough or on the time, it'll do where you can either block an attack or add power to the attack, or
it just adds, makes you focus. I've been again playing through some of the old PlayStation games that they added on the third tier, and Legend of Dragoon has that same system. So yeah, I think more RPGs, especially if you go with that form, really need to continue with that, because it just adds just that little bit extra to what you're doing.
And it's such a beautiful game too. Like, I think people need to, don't worry about the fact that it's like pixel or whatever. Just play this game. It's so beautiful, and then like the way you can move around the world is so fun as well. Just having that freedom of, oh, there's a ledge, I can go up on it, and then there's I can go around to find the puzzles are fun as well, being able to figure out stuff in the dungeons. So yeah, this is such a great game,
and it's perfect for this game. That's both on Game Pass and the PlayStation second tier plus thingy. I will never know those names, Sony. I'm sorry. You've made it complicated. I'm sorry. So the second tier, that's what I'm calling it. But yeah, it's on there. It's very easily accessible if you want to just give it a try. It's well worth it.
Yeah, definitely. If you like those old school RPGs, it should be on your list of I need to play this right now. So moving from things that we've played here, I guess just because it was in the news, they finally revealed the actual way to say Cait Sith, and it is Cait Sith.
Thank God.
It is not Ketchi or some other.
I was hoping. I mean, obviously, we are far from April Fools, but I was hoping they would come out and just say it's Viscerabra or some stupid. Yeah. Like, you guys are saying it completely wrong, and not solve it. But thank God it's Cait Sith, and we don't get through this whole stuff. I'm very excited. I'm sure he will create a VOD for it, but I know Maximilian Dude was going to talk about it on his stream last night, and I wasn't able to catch it. He is very much on the Cait Sith group, and if you ever watch him, he's very opinionated.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that VOD if it comes up.
Yeah, very, very glad that it's the much easier way, the way that we pretty much probably grew up saying it. And, he was a big part of that Rebirth trailer, and obviously, he'll be in this game. Anything that like stood out to you that you're like, man, I can't believe we're going to get to go here or do this?
All of it
in this game. Yeah.
That trailer blew my mind. The last trailer that we got, and then all the stuff that they've shown after it.
Yeah.
Where with the playable stuff, and then obviously you talked about how people have been able to play the demo just outside of Junon, and that trailer just kept going.
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's like, oh my God, that's in here. That's in here. What?
Yeah, it was like literally on this trailer. I'm like, all right, I think they'll show the golden saucer because that is going to be an important part of where they're going to go, and they do, and it's like, that's cool. It's like, oh shoot, there's Vincent. Ah shoot, here's the weapons. The weapons blew my mind. I didn't think we were ever going to get anywhere near that part of this game, and we'll see how much they become involved. And here's the thing. Like, if you go back and watch all the stuff from the first Final Fantasy stuff, it was like this, where they showed off a bunch, and we got that demo a month before the game comes out. It barely scratched the surface of what we actually did in Remake. So for them to show this much stuff, 4 or 5 months before this game is scheduled to be released, I am worried of how much is in this game. Like,
well, they
they
said it
talked
was
about it's gonna be like 100 hours or whatever
yeah.
to complete it. Maximilian dude had a great comment. It's like, this is going to be so much fun for us that just want to play it, but people that want to go get the platinum are pooping in their pants.
Yeah.
I haven't been ever platinum remake either, but I always like to look at trophies and stuff. I bet some of them are going to be insane. They've added just so much stuff to this game. The open world looks really massive and fantastic, but not too much.
Right.
I do like the comparisons that a lot of people are saying about Horizon and maybe that size of the world, which would be perfect for this. I have not been more excited about a game in a long time. And that includes Remake, which we were very, very excited for. And that ended up being, I'm pretty sure we named it our game of the year.
Yeah, it was game of the year. Yeah.
So it's like, I know everyone else was super excited for Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 and all these fantastic games that have come out. It's Rebirth for me. I thank God it's next year. And not where I don't have to try to battle you guys for game of the year with all these other fantastic games that came out this year. But man, Tears of the Kingdom, I guess, came out this year.
Yeah,
too,
exactly.
Good luck, you guys.
There's so much stuff.
Just so you know,
this year.
Best of luck trying to come up with your top 10s this year.
Yeah, that's gonna be rough. And then next year already, the start of next year looks insane. Yeah. Insane. You got
we all talked about, COVID not affecting games, and it didn't take effect like right on 2020, because 2020 was a fantastic year because they were still able to get those games out. But we had a couple of lull years because of COVID, and all of those games that were supposed to come out these last couple of years are now smashing in to the games that really weren't affected by COVID as much, where COVID hit while they were still doing the assembly of what they wanted to do with it, so they could do that from home just fine. So we're getting all of that all at the same time, and it hurts the wallet just slightly,
especially that end of January, beginning of February is insane. You got Like a Dragon 8 Infinite Wealth, the Fantasy Relink game that's been delayed for like 3 years. The Persona 3 Reload comes out, and then you got Final Fantasy at the end of the month. It's absolutely crazy, and I'm sure they will pack stuff in January as well, which will make you go, "Oh my God, where am I gonna get the money for all this stuff?"
Just pulled up the Game Informer thing, and on top of all those games you talked about, Tekken 8 comes out for those that are big fighting game fans. That one's really in there. If you really like the Tomb Raider games, that was a horrible place to put that remastered collection in the middle of February. Helldivers 2 comes out in February, like another Destiny 2
Destiny 2 expansion
comes out. And Suicide Squad, if you really care about that.
Well,
but that game won't come out February 2nd, I have a feeling.
Would not be surprised if they push that back just because. But it's gonna be an insane month, and this year's been an insane year. I'm sure it looks like 2024 is gonna be the same kind of thing. What is going to be around when that happens is another thing, because this week and the last couple of weeks with the Unity BS as well, it feels like we've just been you get awesome game news, right? With the Direct and the State of Play and all that stuff. And then you get all these companies laying off people, people leaving. We had the Hideki Kamiya leaving Platinum Games. Jim Ryan retiring. Unfortunately for him, living so far away from your family, that's a big deal that can finally set things off there. But, we got a pending video game actor strike that could start. So the writer's strike ends, presumably, as long as they ratify everything. You got the SAG-AFTRA thing with the actors for TV and movies that possibly might be progressing. And then you could start a whole new thing with video game actors. And you got Epic laying off 900 people. Because according to Tim Sweeney, they basically thought that gaming was gonna keep the pace that it was at during the pandemic, so they kept buying and buying, and then oh crap, it's not. It's starting to stagnate. What do we? Oh, we gotta cut costs. We gotta cut costs, and eventually that starts affecting people, and that's what's happening here. Is that all these people, all these companies that thought, oh man, gaming's going to keep growing and it's going to get insane. We're going to get all these people to be gamers, and then that didn't happen because people decided that they liked being outside and traveling and doing all these things. Yeah, like. So it's not at pre-pandemic levels, but it's also not at pandemic levels either. It's like in between, and that's not good enough for these people that need this to keep growing to infinity, which that's never going to happen. So Team 17 lays off people, parts ways with their CEO. We had the Sega thing where they killed their whole extraction shooter. There was also a mess with that where there was people that had no direction and they didn't know what they were doing. And you got Ubisoft with the investigation that started in 2021, October 2021, where they had 20% of respondents said that they didn't feel they were fully respected or safe in the work environment, and 25% that said they had witnessed or experienced workplace misconduct. 5 former employees got arrested in this investigation as well by French police. There's a lot there. But man, it sucks to see this part of the industry.
Yeah, first off with the Ubisoft news, and I feel like I've made 3 or 4 appearances over the last 2 years on the show, and it feels like we're always talking about something like this, these workplaces. Hopefully this is continuing a sign of cleaning the mess up. We're going to continue, hopefully this is a good sign of, all right, the investigation was legit. They were really looking for the safety of their employees, and they found a few that were beyond repair and arrested them for their actions. And I'm sure others are going to get in trouble as well. And hopefully this is just the aftermath of what we talked about in the last year or two, when we had all of these issues in some of these companies, and like the top dogs were getting called out for their sexual harassment. And obviously they weren't the only ones doing it, as you said, with the numbers at Ubisoft for how many people felt unsafe. So hopefully that all is starting to get cleaned up. It's never going to be fully cleaned up because there's always going to be pigs out there. And I work in much smaller organizations, and there's still times where I'm like, guys, this is not 30 years ago.
You can't
talk like this. However, in some of our instances, the people that they are saying that stuff to, they've also known for 30 years and they give it right back. But then you get in new people and you scare off those new people because it is harassment. Just because the people you're doing it with for 30 years are giving their harassment right back, and it's friendly banter at this point, doesn't mean that the new people that are coming in are going to be okay with it, which means what you're doing is not okay. Just because it's been okay for 30 years. Times continue to change. I try to tell people that all the time. I was like, well, back in the 90s. It's like, that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, if you go back in the 90s and say, wow, but like slavery wasn't a thing. That wasn't that long ago from the 90s. Like things are going to change and things are going to progress. Things you're going to agree with, things you aren't. But like, it's going in this direction. A lot of it is a positive thing, especially feeling safe where you work is such an important thing, and that is such a good thing. So hopefully we continue to improve. But on the layoff stuff, especially for like Epic, like you were talking about, where they're like, oh, we just thought it was going to be this ridiculous boom forever. Nothing ever is. Like, some things will stay way up here and things will go great. Like the National Football League continues to be the top sport in America, and nothing seems to want to push it, but they aren't always at their tippy top as far as ratings go. You and I have both been wrestling fans for most of our lives, and that is such a roller coaster as far as popularity goes.
Now they're at the top again, but look how long we had to wait between the 90s and now.
Newsflash, it's not going to last. Things are going to dip. And And by the way, being at the top and the ratings are a third of what they were in the 90s, partially because no one watches TV anymore. But still, it's like things go in a crazy roller coaster time. Gaming had this fantastic peak. It worked beautifully during the pandemic. People got into it that weren't into gaming. Animal Crossing came along at the perfect time. Some of these games for service stuff really worked very well to introduce people to gaming. But not all of them are going to stick around. Not all of them are going to continue to play all this other stuff. There's a lot of people that came into the gaming world during the pandemic that are only going to play that game that brought them in. Like Animal Crossing will do just fine for a long time. Like I'm sure Fortnite will do fine for a long time, but it just sucks that like Epic went out and bought all these different things. I feel really bad for Mediatonic and Fall Guys who like fell into the umbrella of Epic and now have to get hit with all these layoffs and stuff for their game, and that's kind of just how the world works, sadly. But you never want to see people lose their jobs, but it's just one of those things where like games have a time frame, and then in between those time frames, you're not bringing in the same amount of money as you were. And then the head dogs are like, well, I can't lose money. I have to be in the black. So what happens? We cut the bottom guys, and it just really sucks.
And this is, luckily for Epic, they also have a whole game engine that they can live off of as well. But this goes to show why you don't expand based off of one game. Mm-hmm. And then not only that, right? They were spending. They were getting all of these different things to put into Fortnite, like all these, Dragon Ball Z and every single possible, thing that you could add. They just started doing the whole thing where V-Bucks cost more. And it's like they realized, crap, we have nothing else. They didn't hire anybody. They tried everything, but then they realized, well, we got to do layoffs. Well, what else can we do? We got to get back in the black. We spent too much and we can't go back on that. I mean, good Lord, Tim Sweeney, you could like lower your salary a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, but I mean.
That is the last possible move. Here's the fun part about all of this. Now, obviously, this is just speculation and me just spouting off the top of my dumb brain. So I obviously know zero about the financials of Epic. But I guarantee during the big boom of 2020, somebody like Sweeney gave himself a nice, big, juicy raise, along with adding.
But then you know what he was doing? He was talking junk about Apple and all that other stuff. But then he's doing exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
So he gives himself a nice, juicy raise. I'm not even going to pick on Sweeney. Just any CEO in any company ever, they get a boom, they give themselves a nice raise because look at all this money that's coming in, and they start hiring all these new people and bringing in these new divisions. The boom disappears. Well, I'm not going to go back down to what I was making before the boom. That would be horrendous. But now you have to pay for this inflated salary that I've given myself. So instead of that, we're just going to chop off the bottom until we continue to go in the black with me making so much more than I did. That's how the world
you
works.
Have Exactly. And then you have the outside factors of inflation and the possible recession and all that stuff. And then now a really actually interesting thing that I found out is like, what's happening during the pandemic. We weren't having people. Yeah, you had some 2020 games like Animal Crossing, like you said, that were huge, but most people were buying older games, right? Because they were cheaper.
Right.
Because it's not like you got to remember, a lot of these people they weren't working. So they had all day to sit there, and they weren't going to sit there and buy $70 games. They were going to buy the games that were $20, $30. Old Call of Duties.
We did for the first 3 months or so when the government was like, here's $600 a week for whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
It's like, so that's the thing is like, it's not like we had this upward trend of all these big games. The reason why Fortnite got to flourish is because it's free.
Yeah.
Right. So like all of a sudden, everybody's playing these games because they're free. And then, wait, we don't want to play anymore. So guess what happens? Now we're starting to retract. We didn't really gain that many like new gamers that are still playing games today, they just or buying $70 games today. It's just they went and bought old games where they're playing these free games, and then when that goes away, you get this. And unfortunately, that's the thing. They inflated. They went and bought Bandcamp, which now they sold off again. They went and bought Super Awesome, and they sold that back to them for the most part. Like they went and bought Harmonix, right? Rock Band people, and now they probably had to lay off people there as well. So it's like Rocket League. They bought Rocket League. They didn't mention anything about Rocket League, but like you said, Mediatonic got hit really bad, and it sucks. Like Fall Guys was this huge thing as well, and then they buy it and they make it exclusive and they do all this stuff, and it's like you're really not helping anything there. Right. It's so this all this stuff sucks to see. Is unfortunately with the redundancies that you get because of you bought people, and then oh crap, we don't need these people, or we can't afford these people anymore, and then also the mergers that. I'm sure at some point, maybe not now, maybe not in 6 months, but at some point they're going to lay off people from Activision that are coming into Microsoft that we don't need 2 of these positions. Right. We don't need 2 of these positions, and or somebody within Microsoft is going to go, why do you have 3 publishers? And they're going to start going, hey, why can't this guy be on top of Activision also? Like, why does Activision have to have their own people? Right. And then they're going to lose people too. And it's like that's what sucks. People don't think about, yes, this is good for the people that were having to deal with the workplace harassment and all that stuff in Activision Blizzard. And maybe some of these companies, these developers will start making other things that it's not Call of Duty. There's a lot of good things, right? But there's a lot of bad things that could happen because of this. And it's just going to be a trend that we're going to keep seeing. Unfortunately, until things kind of level out, people stop overspending for this games of a service stuff, and we go back. And then that's another thing too, right? Like me and Mark talked about. Sean Layden mentioned it, right? Because Capcom, there's a Capcom dev that said games don't cost enough money for what we invest in making the game. So, do you think we're gonna get to a point where either we make smaller games again, or are we gonna go to where games are base $80? Like, where do you think we?
It honestly could be a mix of things. I'm one of the few people that seems like that has no problem with games now being $70 in a lot of areas, because it's been $60 for so long.
Yeah,
like I was shocked. Like it's been shocking to me that we have not bumped up with, again, these games taking so much longer. I mean, just go back to, when you and I were younger, like there was a Mega Man every year. There was a Final Fantasy like every 2 years. It felt like there was a new Mario game every couple of years. And if it wasn't Mario, it was Zelda. Like Nintendo was coming out with some big game every year. Like the turnaround was so much easier than what it is now, where it's taking 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, still waiting for any announcement on the next Grand Theft Auto for what they've been working on. And they've been working on that for a really, really long time. So I totally get a sentiment where you're putting in years where you're paying all these people to build this game, and you're not seeing a cent from it until it finally comes out. And then you're asking for 60, $70 a pop. So that's why games of service became so big, because they had the extra stuff in there. That's why we have all these microtransactions in some of these games, even though you're paying 60, $70. It's why Resident Evil 4 is such a phenomenon and such a weird deal. And that's something I didn't put on my games I've been playing. I finally started playing that DLC. There's so much game in the Ada DLC, and you paid $10 for it. Like the amount of stuff you get for that $10 is shocking. But hopefully,
isn't that Capcom's fault though? Couldn't they have charged $20 if they're complaining about how much games cost? Like,
no, that's what I'm saying. For that, it's shocking how little it cost. It was shocking. It was like, it's only $10. Oh, it's going to be an hour or two. I'm 3 hours into this thing, and I don't feel like I'm anywhere near the end. So it's Yeah, I mean, I kind of would much rather have smaller games, to be fair, partially because of what's going on in my life right now. I don't have time. Like again, Final Fantasy Rebirth is saying 100 hours, and my brain's going, oh god. That's why
Right.
I have Starfield downloaded. It is ready for me to
Mm-hmm.
play, but it just feels like it's going to be too much for me to have the time to get into it. But I want to play it this year. Um, so I like the smaller experiences. Give me 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and let me move on. But yeah, I would not be surprised if games go up in price even more over the next couple of years. People forget. Go look at catalogs for like the Nintendo 64 when it first came out.
Yep.
I want to say, wasn't Donkey Kong 64 like $100 when it first came out?
Because if you bought
pack?
the expansion pack, yeah. If you already had the expansion pack, then there was I think it was 80.
Yeah, but you had to have that expansion pack to even play that game. So, like, games came out in weird ass prices back in the 90s. So, be happy where it's now 70, but like it's 70, $60 for a lot of the
It's really not
games.
70 anymore because now you have DLC for a lot of games. You have those digital deluxe editions that they throw out there immediately, basically making the game $10.
Madden being $100, you could play the broken ass version of it 2 weeks early. That was
EA Sports doing the same thing. It's like it's crazy to me that we're just now figuring this out. Like somebody's just now saying, "Oh, we need to we need to charge more." It's like, hey, we've already been down this path. I don't know that that's going to happen immediately because I think you're going to have a big backlash. And that's the problem too, right? Like Capcom has to fight against all these free-to-play games. Like, can we really charge $80 for big games like that and think that you're not going to suffer?
So let's go back to what we talked about near the beginning of this show with Sony coming out with their movie setup. Can you see a world in the next, say, 5 years where video games go down the same route that TV and movies have? Netflix and Hulu were super popular, and then everyone else was like, I have to have my thing. Game Pass is super popular. PlayStation Plus is pretty good. And Nintendo is Nintendo. But they have their online service at least, so they could do stuff. Can you see a world in the next few years where Capcom goes, nope, we're pulling all our Capcom stuff off of Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, and we are creating Capcom Connect. And you pay us so much a month, and you can stream all of our Capcom games. And Ubisoft will do the same thing. This will do the same thing.
I don't think so because Ubisoft already does it. And I cannot imagine that they get that much from it. I think what they'll do is they'll charge more for these deals that they make. The more money Capcom makes, the more money that they keep making in 1 year that they've made in 10 or 20 years means they can charge more to have Monster Hunter on Game Pass or on PS Plus.
True.
And I feel like if they want to put that out there and say, okay, we'll give you, which they've done it before, we'll put all the Resident Evil games on PS Plus or Game Pass, but you got to pay us this much. And if you don't get any this, you're not.
Right. Though you make a very good argument where they can get more money from Microsoft and Sony than they're going to get from us. And on top of probably the bad publicity that would be.
I just think that we're seeing, the problem is that we're seeing the backlash to everybody having a streaming service. And we're going to start getting we're going to get mergers where Disney just merges everything into Hulu. And you can buy it because they're already doing this. ESPN's going to have its own digital channel where you can just have ESPN as the streaming service. And they can do that because they have all these freaking sports. But like eventually, I think Disney Plus is going to go away and it's just going to be, or Hulu's going to go away and it's just going to be Disney Plus.
I think Disney Plus will be the bigger name, and I think they would stay with that.
Like, because the way that they're talking about Bob Iger is pissed about how much money they have lost on this thing and how many subscribers they're not getting. They're going to get a bump just like Netflix when they do the taking away the password sharing thing. but it's not going to be this infinite amount. Netflix is already noticing that, and they're already going to raise prices again. Netflix is going to get to a point where they're going to raise the price to the point where people are just going to be like, you know what, forget it. I don't care how many originals you come out with or whatever. I'm just not going to subscribe. And they're not going to subscribe yearly anymore. They're going to subscribe when that thing that they want comes out, and then they're going to cancel. And that's the problem is I think Game Pass and PS Plus are at a decent enough price right now where it's actually more viable for them to try to go after the deal. Like Square Enix just did with, they held that on Octopath Traveler 2, and guess what they just did? They probably got a big old chunk of money from Microsoft to get Octopath Traveler 2 on Game Pass, right? And Sega just got a bunch of money for Persona and the Like a Dragon Gaiden being on there day one. That's got to have cost them a pretty penny. So, like, I think they're starting to realize that, you know what we'll do? We'll do our thing where we get money from the players that buy day one, and then in like 3-4 months, we'll start making a deal with Microsoft or with Sony, you know, and get double the money. And it's almost like the syndication deal that we used to have with cable is starting to happen with gaming, and it's more lucrative for them that way.
I think it's in the end, it's good for us gamers too. Because I mean, if you want it day one, you pay the money. If not, wait a little bit, and it'll be on your little streaming service that you forget all about.
Yeah, I just worry about the indies getting hurt more and more, having less visibility. Because every time that you have a Sea of Stars, all these other smaller indies, especially what Game Pass does, where like there's a lot of games on there that nobody's heard about that get announced, and people get mad because it's like, I want the big game. I want the game with the big name. And it's like how much money is Sony probably paying compared to what Microsoft's doing? Because Microsoft can't pay that much anymore because they got to deal with getting this Activision Blizzard thing in here. So, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting thought. Really quick here, what do you think about the Nintendo Wii U and 3DS like online play going down? And do you worry that there's going to be a time where Nintendo just says, you know what? I'm sorry, but although Pokemon Bank is staying up, but like where they go,
bringing money still.
Like, I'm sorry, but it's costing us too much, and we're not seeing people downloading games, so you can't even download the games you bought. Like, do you think we ever get to that point?
For you losing access to games you've already paid for, I think the backlash of that would be beyond repair for even Nintendo. Obviously, I was more sad that the shops shut down than the online play really shut down, because I mean, you would have to get a specific group together, and I'm sure there are those groups around the world that will say, hey, we're getting together to play this Wii U game together or a 3DS game. And we see that with some other older games where they try to keep a service alive. And I'm trying to remember what game it was now that they went, all right, the moment we have 0 users on it, we are shutting down. And like there was a group of like a handful of people that just made sure at least one of them was on.
Oh, Halo 2. Halo 2 that happened.
So it was like for years they kept that online service going. But so like online play leaving, I'm not too worried about. Again, I'm sad that the shops are gone because there's a lot of games that were on those shops that you won't see. And it kind of sucks that Nintendo got a big money boost for shutting down the service because people went, oh crap, I have to go buy all these games before they left. Yeah. But I've been working slowly on a Nintendo Wii U game or full game collection because there's not a ton of them, and none of them are super expensive because all the good ones have already moved on to the Switch. But I have 0 interest in playing any of these games online. So I mean, it all makes sense that all online play definitely has a life cycle that for the Wii U and the 3DS I think has run out.
Yeah, it sucks to see. It sucks for all those gamers that are possibly still using, especially their 3DS. I don't know about how many people are using their Wii U at this point. But
two people, maybe.
You know, I hate seeing this. I hate seeing that we live in this world where your games are finite, and especially if they're an online game, get ready because they could possibly go away completely and you don't get to play it at all. That's the thing with these games of service as well. I think that like we're not seeing that like if they don't have a single player component at any point, once this game gets where it's not got enough users, they can just be like, you know what? Goodbye.
Like Knockout City, where it's, hey, this is going to be this great game, but if you miss the boat, you're never playing this thing.
Yeah, not playing this again. And like, I hate seeing that. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you have these digital stores. They're eventually going to go down. The cost that it takes to keep these running for them, they don't see the point in it when there's not enough people playing. And if you're still playing online with your Wii U or 3DS, then it is what it is. Just get ready for that. So, going into the games that are coming out this weekend, it seems like there's a lot. Right now, you can go play the aforementioned Assassin's Creed Mirage. It came out today. You can go play. You can go play. Cricket 24. You can go. I think
I have to go download it. Let's get the show done. I gotta go get that one.
I think if you pay for that special edition, Forza Motorsport, the new one, you can go play that right now. It doesn't officially come out till the 10th for the people on Game Pass, but so big games coming out right now. Detective Pikachu also coming out tomorrow. Pikachu 2, I'm sorry. Pikachu Returns. That Wargroove 2 game also comes out, which is, the first one was really good. Kind of based off of like Advance Wars. But what if it was looked like Fire Emblem? So that Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition, which is the first game that's going to be on 2 discs for the PS5.
I was hoping it was Rebirth that was going to do that.
Yeah, it's apparently not. NHL 24 coming out as well tomorrow. And there's quite a few things that I'm interested in this. I hope it's good because I actually like the 2 NBA 2K versions of this, but I don't know if you've seen it, Randy, the Wild Card Football. It has the NFLPA license, but it does not have the NFL license. So it has the players, but not the actual teams. Okay. So it's kind of like NFL Street came back.
Gotcha.
Sort of. And I'm kind of really interested in and seeing how that plays. Roblox comes to the PS4. Honkai Star Rail comes to the PS5. I've been waiting for this because I like it on my phone, but I don't, because Ever Crisis keeps making me delete stuff on my phone. I don't want to be deleting stuff on my phone because of this too. So much easier to play on my PS5. I don't know if you've seen this, Randy. This is like a turn-based RPG that's made by the Genshin Impact people. So it might be more of your style. The art is really good, and beginning part of the story that I played already is really good as well. So, and it's free. So if you want to go check it out, it's there for you. There's quite a bit here. That Lords of the Fallen game, also the second game, which they named the same as the first game, comes out as well on the 13th. So some stuff in here. Of course, everybody's waiting till the week after, where you get a bunch of the big games, the Marios, the Sonics, the Spider-Man, all that. So get ready. That wallet is going to be getting tight there with all these games. Still can't believe Spider-Man and Mario first day.
Yeah. Those are the 2 games that are top of my list right now, but we'll see when I can get to them. But I'm ready. I'm ready for games. I'm ready to try to get back into gaming. Again, we've got mostly moved in. The semester has finally gotten into a groove. So see what I can get done playing.
Well, the silly season is upon us. We'll be back next week. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. If you did, subscribe, like, follow, all that on the YouTube channel, W2 Network, on Twitch as well, or go find us on the audio side, Video Games to the Max. Anytime we do a show, it will be there for you in your feed. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.